Hey yo, what is up FPG fam? Further here. Now for today's video, I wanted to have a bit of a difficult conversation. Once again, that I've been thinking about like my last video for a little bit in reference to Saki and her release in the game and how she's going to be fitting in the Frost team. I know there's some people thinking that with the release of Saki, because this is how it is on the CN version, that she's going to be simply replacing Meryl. And I wanted to have this discussion because I think on the global side, the way they are doing rebalances and the way they're changing simulacrums and their kit and their percentages and their numbers, I don't necessarily think that might be the case on the global side. I think there's an argument to be had that Saki is not going to simply replace Meryl, but that you can realistically, especially in the beginning, run them together on the same team and it actually be viable. And that could be the way it is for quite some time down the road until, of course, Lynn, Alice, and others release that maybe supplement that team and change it up a bit. But I don't think on the global side necessarily it's going to be the same as on the CN side, which I think is a valid argument to have, and I think it's realistic because that's how it's been from the release of Global Tower Fantasy up until this point. Things have been different, team comps have been different, and I actually have been enjoying that. Let me know in the comments down below if you've been enjoying doing things differently than CN in terms of the meta and team comps, because I've seen that be the case, and I think it's been rather refreshing not having to follow the same blueprint that CN has been doing. And what I mean by that specifically is that I think the way the global devs have been doing things, and I've seen this very prevalent in the Flame team, is that when you have two simulacrums, like let's say for example Ruby and Cobalt, that both come with the Flame Resonance, I think with the global devs, their main objective, or at least one of them, was to give the players the freedom of choice, being able to choose which simulacrum they want to have on the team and not be tunneled in, or funneled in I should say, into only one team comp because that's the only team comp that's viable. Let me explain myself and clarify. On the CN side, Ruby was the only one that had the Flame Resonance, meaning that you need to pull Ruby in order for the Flame team to be optimal and to be able to use them at the highest degree. If you didn't have Ruby, you're missing out on the Flame Resonance, and then your Flame team is not as great, and so you were forced to pull Ruby. And I think on the global side, they didn't want to have people forced to pull a simulacrum because, for example, there could have been many individuals that didn't like Ruby for multiple different reasons, whether it be character design, kit, her attacks were too slow, they didn't like her weapon. There's multiple different reasons on why people would not like Ruby, but they were forced to pull her anyways and use her in the Flame team because she's the only one that had the Flame Resonance. I think on the global side, they wanted to be able to give people the freedom of choice to be able to have variety and not be funneled into specific team comps and have that be the only team comp. So they gave other simulacrums like Cobalt B, like Frigg, like Claudia the Resonance as well, and give you the freedom of choice to choose whether or not you want to have Ruby because you like Ruby. But if you didn't like Ruby, well then you can just have Cobalt B because Cobalt B also has the Resonance. Same goes with Frigg for the Frost team. If you didn't like Saki for whatever reason, I'm not sure why you wouldn't. I mean, come on, double katanas, you've seen it. But for whatever reason, if that doesn't float your boat, that's not up your alley, well then you don't have to have Saki. You have Frigg who has the Frost Resonance, and you can move on with your day and have a different team comp and have different team builds. And I think that's what the global devs, one of their objectives was to do, is to give you choice, to give you variety, and not be funneled into just one comp. And I think that's one of the main issues on the CN side that they're dealing with to this day. So I think that is one of the reasons why, and this leads into Saki and Meryl, okay? Because on the CN side, everybody knows that Saki absolutely replaced Meryl. And the reason being is not only because of the Resonance, not only because Saki is a tank that can shield break, but also her damage numbers are just incredibly high. She's doing tremendous amount of damage, and there's just, it makes Meryl null and void. It makes Meryl obsolete. There's no reason to have Meryl because you have Saki who could tank, that could do damage, that has the Resonance. She just does it all. So what's the point in having Meryl on that team? There really isn't any, and that just makes Meryl obsolete. So if you invested in Meryl on the CN side, it was all for naught, unless you just absolutely love this simulacrum and you're going to use her no matter what, right? And more kudos to you if you do that on the CN side. But I think on the global side, what we're going to be seeing and what's probably going to happen in the future, and what I'm kind of leaning towards, is that with the rebalances to the numbers for Saki, once again, we really have to try her in game to see how significant it is and how good she truly is. But I think with the rebalances and the numbers and what we're seeing on the global side is that realistically, upon Saki Fuhwa's release, you could probably run her alongside Meryl and not necessarily be a full-on replacement, because the thing about Meryl and these standard simulacrums is that you are able to get multiple stars on them. And I think with the rebalances to the new simulacrums releasing and then the percentage numbers decreasing, this allows for the standard simulacrums to be a little more viable because you have more advancements on them, meaning that they are going to be at least comparable to what the new ones are coming out at lower stars, right? But obviously if you get more stars on the newer ones, they're just going to be far and away better. But for most individuals that are free-to-play players, light spenders, they're not going to be able to get multiple stars in the beginning for the newest simulacrum to release. So for most, Saki's going to be at A0 or A1, which is perfectly fine, because if you have a Meryl at, let's say for example, A5, which is realistic for a lot of people that have been playing the game since the beginning, this allows Meryl to still be extremely relevant and viable in this team. And then you just plug in Saki Fuhwa, let's say for example on my account, instead of Nemesis, and run Frigg, Saki, Meryl, and I think that's actually going to be an extremely viable team, because Meryl still has a place here at, let's say for example, A5, A3. Obviously you could still replace Meryl with Saki Fuhwa if you want to, and run different team comps, but I think that's the beauty of Global. It gives you the freedom of choice. It gives you the opportunity to try different team comps instead of being funneled into just one. I think the same can be said about the Flame team comp as well, and then what we're going to see in the future, right? You have multiple different ways you can play this team comp and multiple different viable ways to, you know, for example, everybody thought King was going to get simply replaced, but if you have King, you know, let's say A5, A6, he's still viable. He is still strong. He's still a simulacrum that you can have on this team and works out perfectly fine, and not just a simple replacement. And I think that's great, because obviously you invest into these simulacrums in the beginning, and then to have that feeling of your investment just going to waste, which is something that I thought was going to happen with the standard simulacrums, because that's why I stopped investing into Meryl. I was thinking she was just going to become obsolete once that comes out, but then the more I started to play the game, and the more I started to see the rebalances, and the more I started to see the direction that the global devs wanted to take, I started to realize that these standard simulacrums might actually, at least for the time being, stand the test of time and still be able to be used in these teams and these team comps, at least for a little while longer, right? But once again, this is just my my thoughts and 2 cents, something that I've been thinking about for a little bit, and I want to get your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what your opinions are, and this is more of a discussion video. I'm waiting, I mentioned this in my last video, but I am waiting for Saki Fuhwa to be released in the warehouse, so I can do my pre-analysis. As of this recording, she has not been, but I want to have her in here so I can do my pre-analysis, and then we'll move forward with my first impressions, full depth in reviews, tier lists, and all that good stuff. So anyways, guys, I'm going to get on out of here. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your opinions down in the comments below. I'm curious what you guys have to say about this. It's just something that I've been thinking about for a little bit and wanted to discuss with you all. But I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to get on out of here. Remember to stand out, be different, have fun, go further beyond in everything that you do. My name is Cody, but you can call me further. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.